Greetings and salutations. It is I, Mr. Nothing, the museum curator of the weird and the strange and the host who might be a ghost. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual literature that I have found in my travels. Today is Short Story Tuesday, so I wanted to talk about a new collection of short stories from African authors. I am referring to the book Dominion, which comes out August 17th. Dominion has multiple authors, so it does have two editors, but there's no specific author for this. It's just a collection of different writers talking about speculative fiction. And these authors are African American, or they come from countries in Africa. So you're getting a side of speculative fiction, sci-fi, fantasy, horror that you don't normally see, which is what drew me to this. Because again, I like to talk. This is Around the Weird, so let's talk about all things weird. And a lot of authors in Africa are often ignored. A good example of this is how at the recent Hugo Awards, George R.R. Martin, based on what I've read, he butchered a couple names, even though he had plenty of time to learn how to pronounce the names of the winners, which I think is pretty sad and reflective of how the literary world views Africa, and that there's plenty of talented writers coming from Africa, or who are African American, or who are black, people of color. But I don't think that the white European authors take those authors seriously, even though more and more are winning awards and doing great work, as demonstrated by this book. There's a lot of different styles going on, a lot of different types of genres in this book. There's horror, science fiction, fantasy. There's a story about African tribes going to war with one another, called Clan War. So there's something like that. You get an American author, it's called Emily, by Marion Denise Moore. So she wrote a very short story about the antebellum past of New Orleans and a slave girl that she's speaking to between across time. And then there's another story called Satellite Charmer by Mame Buguma Dine, I believe is how you pronounce her name. She uses her story of a future advanced technology that allows you to mine from space. She's using it to critique neocolonialism. And she's using sci-fi as that bridge of critiquing neocolonialism, specifically China's intervention in Africa and how they're often plundering resources, which I think is interesting and something that this book touches upon. There is a specific short story that I wanted to talk about today to illustrate what you might find in this book, Dominion. It is called Sleep, Papa Sleep by Suyi Davies Okunbawa, I believe is how you pronounce their name as well. It's a pretty interesting short story. So let's get to the summary and the analysis, and then we will move on from there. So Sleep, Papa Sleep focuses on Max Anikawa. Max is a sort of down on his luck grave robber who I'm assuming, based on the author's background, this story takes place in West Africa, maybe Nigeria, or Benin. So that general area. And he, at the present moment, the story starts when he is going to sell body parts to a customer. He doesn't know what they do with that body parts. There's rumors that some people eat them, but he doesn't know for sure. So after giving him the customer the body parts, he goes home and he discovers a set of footprints leading to one of the chairs in his house, and he sees the person sitting there, and it's his dead father. Like his father can't possibly be alive because he died years ago, and Max didn't get a chance to reconcile with him because he lost touch with his father. His father wanted him to go into the family business, but he was like, no thanks, I'd rather do other things. So there's a little of a troubled family past, and maybe he didn't get to reconcile as much as he wanted to. And it doesn't really make sense to him how his father can be there because he's dead, and he's not really talking to him. He's just kind of there, and he sort of realizes that maybe the body parts that he sold the customer were his father's body parts, because he didn't know where the grave was. He contracted his friend Chidi to go to the grave and figure it out. So, and the rules are kind of like, don't touch the body parts of the people that you know, because bad things could happen to there. And that's a superstition, but appears to be true here. That's a bad time for him. He reaches out to his friend Chidi, and Chidi checks medical records, but there's no evidence that it was his father's grave. It seemed more like a mass grave, and there's no headstones confirming whether or not that was his father's body parts. So his only other option right now is to go back to, according to Nwanso, who is a lady friend of his. She tells him to go back and destroy it. So he figures what that means is to go back to the customer and ask for the body parts back so he can destroy them and be rid of his father's haunting of sorts. And so he ends up going back with Chidi to the house where the customer is, and the customer is willing to give him the body parts, but instead they want Chidi, presumably to eat him. It's a bit unknown what they're going to be doing with the body parts, as Max mentioned at the beginning of the story. Max wants to be rid of his father's present, but he doesn't want to lose his best friend in the process. So he goes home, and in a hilarious moment, he just takes the dead body, puts it in the car, and drives it to the customer's house, and here you go, here's another dead body for you to use instead. And the customer is surprisingly okay with what the narrator calls extant. So it's it's not quite dead, not quite living. Surprisingly okay with it. And Chidi and Max drive away. In his rearview mirror, he doesn't look, but they're clearly gathered around the body. And again, he doesn't know what they're going to do with it, and he doesn't care. Following Nwanso's advice, it's dead to him. It's gone. The body is no longer haunting him in a lot of ways. Although he still hasn't resolved some of the problems with his father, but maybe he did through Chidi, who is to say for sure. In terms of analysis, one of the big themes of this short story is being haunted by your past. Specifically, Max is haunted by his father, Mazi, who wanted him to go into the family business, and they kind of had a falling out as a result of that, and Max didn't even get to see his father before he died. And so he's haunted by that. But not only that, but he's also haunted by there's also a haunting going on with Nwanso, because Max noted that there were a couple different sets of footprints, much like he found in his own house, leading to Nwanso's house. So did Nwanso accidentally get some body parts that were someone related to her? It's possible. Did she follow her own advice? And her own advice here was don't touch your people, which is sort of a running idea throughout this story. No matter how much you want to reclaim the ones you have lost, it's not going to end well for you. And there's a specific quote that I want to address here. It says, "I told you, you don't touch people. You don't touch your people," she says. I know, it was a stupid mistake." You don't touch your people, she repeats, because if you kept them alive enough in your chest, they will come back. Then you will think you can let them stay. You will think you can't lose them again. And that's how you become mad, old, rotten. She shakes her head. Lingering onto the past and trying to hold on to the ones you love. Like, you can think about them all you want, but if you try to hold on to them for too long, like, you become bitter, like, you become old, life, it becomes a bad time for you. And you might be driven mad by the thought that, like, you could bring back the people that you love to life. And it shrivels you up and makes you cold inside, I would figure. Did Nwanso follow that old advice? Is she just repeating what happened in her own life? Like, she thought she could bring back her sister or the ones that she loved who died, and as a result, like, it made her bitter and cruel, because she does come off that way. And as Max notes, like, there are footprints leading there, so is she trying to keep her people alive, and, like, she's sort of the cautionary tale of the story. It's something to think about, and the story doesn't readily give you an answer there. I will say my only problem with the story is a lot of these short stories, they tend to go on longer than they need to, and they repeat themselves. So, like, long after the author has reached their point, they're going back to that point and just repeating without advancing the plot in any meaningful way. And it's like, okay, I get what you're trying to say. You could have ended it like a couple pages ago. But I'm not gonna say that's a big gripe. That might just be me complaining. Other than that, like, I enjoyed this short story collection. It was definitely different than reading short stories from American authors. And it was definitely a good experience to read, authors of different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, and see what they find to be scary or interestingly high-tech or even fantasy-like. So yeah, that's what I got out of this, and I'm really happy that I managed to get an advanced review copy of this book, especially because Lucas from Bits of Lit pointed it out to me, and that was pretty interesting. So thanks to him for introducing it to me. If you have a comment on anything you'd like to say or anything that wasn't clear about the story, feel free to leave a comment below. I would love to talk to you about this. It's always fun to talk about, the different types of short stories there are out there from different cultures. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that other people can learn about this interesting book. And once again, if you're interested in buying it, you can find it wherever books are sold on August 17th. I feel like that's important to reiterate because it was an advanced review copy, and I have to say that kind of thing. But until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird travels. Farewell.